Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. We're coming to you live from day 2 of the Singapore Fintech Festival, and joining me to kick off our coverage for today, we have Dushyant Shahrawat. He's Director of Investment Banking at Rosenblatt Securities to discuss the state of the fintech industry and what we can expect for 2024. Dee, it is great to see you wherever we are, all over the world.
Great to see you, Jill.
Trade Talks. You just moderated a panel with senior executives and the CEO of Swift. What were some of the key discussion points and insights from that panel?
Sure. Jill, let me just first say, terrific to be in Singapore, right?
Yes.
I mean, no other place like this. Last time we talked was at Money 2020, the biggest fintech conference in North America, and this is the biggest fintech conference in the world, right? So I think firstly, that's tremendous. You know, this is my 6th year doing this at Singapore, and absolutely fantastic. So yesterday morning, kicked off the entire event with a panel discussion with 3 CEOs of Asian banks. The Swift CEO couldn't make it at the last minute. But what was fascinating about was, you know, a perspective that we don't go and get in the US, which is about what's happening in the greater Asia Pacific region. Very relevant with the President Biden, Xi Jinping, you know, talk yesterday. So talking about what the regional issues were, a couple of observations. One, the issues we're talking about here are not all that different from a technology and finance standpoint in terms of artificial intelligence, regulation around digital assets, tokenization, macroeconomic uncertainty, impact of inflation. Same issues we're discussing here as well. Having said that, there are some regional differences, right? One of the important issues in Singapore here is you cannot do something here purely in a single jurisdiction. So everything is around collaboration and interoperability across the entire region. And particularly Singapore, where they position themselves with MAS, which is as a way to, you know, govern across the entire region, whether it's from Australia all the way up to Japan, Hong Kong, the entire region, right? So one of the big takeaways that I had was just the collaboration that we're seeing across Southeast Asia, so Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Singapore, down to Australia, down to Hong Kong, up to Japan, right? So that whole corridor, we're seeing tremendous progress. I'll throw in India as there, you know, as well in there. So one of the observations I had was simply that, one, the technology issues we're talking about here are not that different that we're discovering and talking about in North America. But second, it is much more, everything's about, it's extremely important to collaborate across different regions with regulators, policymakers, and that's why we're seeing, you know, the President of Singapore kicking off the event yesterday. We had the IMF head, we've had the World Bank head tomorrow talking about, you know, what's happening here. That's a perspective we don't see as much in the US, which is very much driven by the private sector.
Right. Well, it's interesting because this is also my 6th year covering it here, and I always find it interesting to see how the trends evolve, and I think policy is one of them. I feel like we're talking about it more so now than we have in the past. What are some of the themes that you're picking on at the Singapore Fintech Festival? What are some of the trends that you noticed?
Yeah, absolutely. So every year, you know, the Singapore Fintech Festival does a great job picking up what the major themes are. Last couple of years, it's been a lot around digital assets. This year, obviously, it's AI and digital assets as well. But I think on the policy standpoint, that's extremely important because, again, related to what I said a few minutes ago, that's a perspective we don't get at most events or conferences, right? If you go to DC, there's a discussion around regulation. If you go to New York, whether it's SIFMA, you talk about regulatory policy, but a venue where you're talking about finance, technology, and policy, that's fairly unique, right? So that is an important aspect here. I think one of the observations I took here was how much progress things have been made in terms of areas like digital assets and the role that Singapore's Monetary Authority of Singapore is taking in that space. So for example, they've got a project called Project Guardian, which has got about 17 large financial institutions, including large US companies like T. Rowe Price, that are participating in this project, which is around experimenting with tokenization of assets. And, you know, Deutsche Börse yesterday, Deutsche Börse, Euroclear, which is basically the DTCC equivalent in this part of the region and in Europe, are not just cheerleaders, but doing tremendous work around the tokenization of assets. And right here was, you know, I was listening to a session by Euroclear yesterday talking about the fact how they're tokenizing different things. So you're seeing market infrastructures that were in the past really behind the ball in terms of innovation, stepping ahead and actually putting where the money where the mouth is and doing real meaningful things in tokenization. So that, to me, was a major takeaway that I've taken from this session, looking at what's happening on the theme here. Along the lines of that, I'll mention that DTCC in the US, which obviously 50-year-old market infrastructure, clearing and settlement backbone, they acquired a company in the blockchain space a couple of weeks ago called SecureNC. So you're seeing market infrastructures not just act and do roundtables and participate in things like Product Guardian, but actually acquire companies, private companies in the blockchain tokenization space, which really makes me feel like things are progressing pretty quickly in that area.
What are some of the trends with fintech right now, and what are your expectations as we get into 2024?
So I think that's where each region has its different observations. So I think in taking what's happening in the US, clearly the lead is what's happening in the public markets. And in the public markets, it's been a roller coaster up and down. We had a window of opportunity with IPOs picking up in August with the ARM IPO that we participated as an underwriter in that. I think that excitement kind of seemed to fizzle away right after Labor Day. There's been a glimmer of hope last 4 weeks. So when you think about what's happening broadly in the fintech space, I think the lead comes from what is happening at the macroeconomic level and what the economic forces are impacting financial markets overall. And there I think things seem to be getting better, right? It was the only way up from 2022, and first half of 2023 was up. So 2024, we're expecting that the markets do better. That cascades back into how the financial sector is doing, how financial stocks are doing. I think last time we were talking about the fact that even bellwether stocks like Jack Dorsey's Block, which was trading at a third of what it was, all-time high, as low as like $48, it's picked up now. But it's still not even half, it's like 60% down from where it was 12 to 18 months ago. So if the bellwether fintech companies in the public markets are not doing well, that has cascading effect downstream on valuations, pricing, seed stage activity, all kind of LP allocations to fintech investments. All of that downstream takes the lead from what's happening in the public markets overall, and particularly how fintech stocks are doing. And I think there we seem to be turning around the corner, at least I hope. I think IPO market's going to pick up. Here, two of the big sponsors here. One is Ant Group, obviously, and the other two are US companies that are squarely in the digital asset space. One is called Circle, and one's called Paxos. There was rumors on Bloomberg that Circle might be going public next year, so if that happens, it'll be a tremendous name to go public. So I think if we see meaningful companies like Circle come to the market, go public in 2024, that has a very positive effect on the entire fintech universe, not just public companies, but all the private late-stage unicorns that are waiting in the wings to go public.
All right, Dave, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me from Singapore. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.